So there are a couple of cool things happened at the top. So they had like the waterfall, and that was just gorgeous. And honestly, it might have been a little bit too gorgeous while tripping because I was so tempted to go and touch the water. And I had to keep on reminding myself, like, don't go to the water, don't go near the water, don't touch the water. You will fall and die.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Our goal is to educate and inform others about the realities of substance use in an engaging and entertaining format. We share these experiences so you can experience them without trying them yourself. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to attempt to recreate anything found in this episode or in any of our other content. We are not confessing to any acts stated in this podcast. The content in this episode should not be treated as factual or real in any way.
Magic mushrooms might be able to cure addiction.
For people suffering with severe PTSD, the benefit of talk therapy could be greatly improved with an unlikely drug, MDMA, popularly known as ecstasy.
Could a drug stop suicidal thoughts in hours? Well, there is a drug. It's called ketamine. It's an anesthetic, also used illicitly as a club drug, and it's now being used by some doctors who have patients in a serious suicidal state.
You're listening to Modern Day Hippie, the podcast about doing drugs in a responsible, fun, and safe way to improve your life. We're your hosts, Yuki and Reggie, and we hope you enjoy the show. What's up, guys? We're coming at you with a banger story today of a trip that Reggie had a couple years ago. Honestly, it's one of my favorite stories of yours, Reggie, so stay tuned for that. But first off, what you been up to? Any interesting thoughts lately?
Yeah, actually, I've tried this new thing where I set my phone to be in black and white instead of full color. I don't know. I saw someone on YouTube like recommend it, and it's been about 2 weeks now that I've been doing it. And I will say, I feel like it has significantly decreased my phone usage and kind of just freed up my time and my mind in a way. I don't know if you've ever tried something like that.
Yeah, I actually did a couple years ago, and I had the exact same experience with it. And similarly, I think I'd heard it on some blog or YouTube video or something. And I was like, well, let me give this a try. And genuinely, it helped so much in terms of making me less like tied to my phone, less addicted to it. And I got really curious about like why that is and kind of looked into the science of it a little bit. And just realized, like these bright colors are just so stimulating to our brains because our brains are still kind of evolved to be in like a natural environment that usually has pretty muted colors like browns and greens and blacks and grays. And so when you see something like a bright red, that signals like danger to you. And honestly, a lot of like venomous animals and things are brightly colored to kind of signal that to all sorts of other creatures. And so, the notifications on your phone, those are bright red. You have all this like backlight and colors coming at you. And I think that honestly is very underrated as part of people's like phone addictions, which honestly I think is something that the majority of people with smartphones struggle with.
Yeah, man, it's like a drug, honestly. And I realized it most with like the Instagram logo. Like that bright pink Instagram logo is so stimulating to me. So whenever it's in black and white, it really just made me not even want to be on Instagram nearly as much, which was great for my productivity, I will say.
Dude, that's awesome. That actually reminds me of like, this was years ago now, but remember like Instagram's old logo? It was kind of like the tan and the brown. And they like updated it to the new one. And obviously when it first changed, everyone like hated it. They're like, oh, like what the hell are you guys doing? And, now it's this kind of like rainbowish hue that I'm sure definitely contributes, to some extent of people's usage. You also have to consider with a consumer facing app like that, even a 1% increase in opens or clicks is absolutely massive because we're talking about the scale of tens and hundreds of millions of people. So I could definitely see that having been a calculated move.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I will say there are some like, I don't know if I want to call them side effects, but just things I kind of noticed by having my phone in black and white. I don't know if this is just placebo or not, but I feel like whenever I do see colors, they are more vibrant in real life now. Like they just kind of stick out to me more. And the other thing is that I kind of like have been dreaming in black and white a little bit. And I feel like if there's not sufficient light in the room, then I kind of just interpret it as black and white, even when it's not. So it's really strange, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Dude, that's crazy. That just really randomly reminded me of when I watched the new Thor movie, Love and Thunder, on a fuck ton of shrooms. And the part of the movie where everything's actually black and white. I'm like, how hard am I tripping right now? Black and white.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, that's cool. I'm excited to hear how the black and white continues to go for you. And who knows, maybe I'll get back on it, because I know I had stopped because I like was taking more pictures, like posting more on Instagram, and it's like harder to do that when even like your camera is on black and white and you just can't really tell what things look like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Without further ado, let's jump into the story. If you want to start by setting the scene here, Reggie.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I had a friend who was interning in Berkeley, California. I don't even remember what he was doing, honestly, but he invited me and a couple other friends up there to go hiking at Yosemite. And we were like, all right, this sounds like a great idea. Sounds super fun. Like, let's do it on psychedelics, right? And so we brought some acid with us on the plane. And like, for those of you who don't know, like acid is one of those things that's like relatively easy to sneak onto a plane. Since we had like paper tabs, and my friend just put them like in his wallet between like money and stuff, and like his credit card.
Right.
He's like, yeah, man, like paper between plastic, like that's what everyone expects.
Yeah. Wait, and so you guys like completely planned this out beforehand? Like before you even get on the plane, you're like, we're going to trip balls at Yosemite National Park.
100%. Yeah. That was the like
All right.
half the reason that we went. That was how I was convinced to go to California in the first place, if I'm being honest.
the good old drug tourism industry.
Yeah, we brought our own drugs though.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, we go to Yosemite, and we were going on this one hike that was 4 miles up and 4 miles down, and they had like a waterfall at the top or something. Well, they did have a waterfall at the top, and there were 5 of us who did this total, and each of us took 1.5 to 2 tabs of acid. And the acid that we got was like actually like pretty strong. So we all like take the acid, and then we're like walking, we're going to the trail. And I'm the type of person, especially at the time, I was the type of person who didn't like to like ever be on my phone while tripping or anything. Like I didn't want to have to worry about anything while tripping. So I had all my stuff, like my phone, my wallet, everything, my ID, all that stuff, with one of my friends in his little backpack thing. And I don't know why I was not super prepared for this trip. I was wearing like training shoes, like flat CrossFit shoes, like, and like just sweatpants and a t-shirt. I was like, whatever. Like, I didn't bring any water with me or anything like that.
Yeah, dude. Wait, so you just pull up to like one of the craziest national parks in the world, and you're like, let me just like start on this like walk that's gonna end up being like 8 miles of probably pretty intense terrain?
No, pretty much. I just wasn't thinking it through, honestly. And so we're at the bottom of the trail, like before you really start, they have these water like dispensers or whatever, where you can like fill up your water bottles and stuff.
Right.
And so I'm like, damn, like I didn't bring any water, so I should probably just chug right now, which is like a really stupid idea. And so I chugged like half a gallon of water or something before we even left, because I didn't want to carry anything with me, especially while tripping.
Right. And so at this point, like it sounds like you guys had dropped acid while you were like, you know, in the car about to leave on this hike.
Well,
so
we dropped it when we were at the bottom, like before we got the water, pretty much.
Okay, gotcha. So the water was still like normal state of mind.
Yeah, I was still sober when I was chugging the water.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we start walking, man. And the acid like just starts hitting. And I mean, for those of you who've been to Yosemite, you know this, but I will say it was one of the most beautiful views that I have seen while tripping. It was, and the acid that we were on, it was either 1P or 2P LSD, and the colors were so intense. Like everything was just like turning purple, and like it just was gorgeous, and all of the rocks were sparkling like crazy. And I was like, man, this is amazing. Like it just was so gorgeous to me. But I realized that my body was also just getting pretty nauseous because of the psychedelics coming up on it, and just like having
Yeah.
drank a lot of water and everything. And within like the first hour of like the hike, I threw up all over the ground. Like I was just so nauseous. Everything was spinning like crazy, like on top of tripping, right? So it's like I threw up, and once I threw up, I felt better, and I just kept going. I was like, fuck it.
Oh my God. Wait, so at this point, you're like at the point where you're tripping pretty hard. And
Yeah.
you vomit. Dude, what was that like? That's literally one of my worst nightmares. Because there was one time where I was tripping super hard in acid and I had to take a shit really badly. and honestly, that was like a scarring enough experience. Taking a shit in like a camping outhouse. Also weirdly like a hiking / camping trip experience. But dude, what was throwing up like? Like, how did that feel? Like, where was your head at?
It was a relief, man. Honestly, I was just like,
Damn.
like when your literal perception, your vision perception is literally spinning, like throwing up and like having relief from that and being able to see straight was just the best thing ever. And I mean, I was throwing up all water too. Like it wasn't like gross, honestly, because I was chugging water before, which is also probably why I needed to throw up. Like,
yeah, I mean, I know for me, if I chug a bunch of water before doing any activity, I can feel it sloshing around in my stomach. That plus psychedelics sounds like a horrible combination, just like as a sensation.
It was interesting, and the people I was with were chill about it. Like, oh, bad, he finished throwing up. Let's keep going. But man, it gets worse. Me throwing up's not the worst thing that happened. All right.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, we keep going, and I knew two of the people beforehand that we were with, and then the other two guys, they were brothers. I had met them in California. You actually know one of them. You went to college with him.
Cool. You have to tell me afterwards.
Yeah. And so the two guys that I knew were like a lot more physically fit than the rest of us, and so they kind of went forward ahead of the rest of us three. And so we kind of split up, and all of my stuff was with my friends who I knew who had gone forward. So, but I didn't think much of it. I was like my phone, my wallet, and all that stuff. It was all with them. And,
right, you're like, we'll meet back up with them. Like, I was
like, well, we'll meet back up with them. Like, they have the snacks. We'll meet them at the top. It's not a big deal, right?
Oh, they had the snacks too. Sheesh.
Yeah, they had the snacks, dude. That was like important detail. So we finally we get to the top, and it was like really fun, honestly. Like just tripping and like hiking up there. The views were amazing, and the conversations we had were really good and everything. And we get to the top, and the two guys that had gone ahead of us had already left the top at that point. I guess because they weren't there. Well, I found out later they had already left because they weren't there. So I was like, oh, okay. So we'll just chill up here.
And so you guys didn't run into them as they were coming back down?
Yeah,
anything?
You would think, because the way back is like the same way down.
Right.
I don't know how we didn't run into them, honestly. I guess there were some like deviations that you could take. And they were tripping, and I know that they were like looking at rocks and shit. So like, we might have walked right past them. You know what I mean? They were probably just like in like the little like,
you're like,
off
oh,
the
that's
trail.
probably just like a tree.
Yeah, for real. And so there a couple of cool things happened at the top. So they had like the waterfall, and that was just gorgeous. And honestly, it might have been a little bit too gorgeous while tripping, because I was so tempted to go and touch the water. And I had to keep on reminding myself, like, don't go to the water, don't go near the water, don't touch the water, you will fall and die. Like, because I mean, it's a cliff, right? So like I literally would have died.
Dude, and that's super dangerous. Like I've done a few of the waterfall hikes at Yosemite, and like there's like signs everywhere. Like, even if the water looks chill and calm, like don't do, like, people die all the time from this shit.
Dude,
so that's definitely something that someone on a lot of psychedelics would accidentally do.
It was like one of my biggest fears going into it. I was like, I cannot let myself be tempted by the beauty of it. You know what I mean? Like, I care about my life.
It's literally like the sirens from the Odyssey.
Dude, yes, exactly.
Like, you gotta like have someone like tie you down or some shit.
Exactly. It was interesting. It was an experience, that's for sure. Yeah. So I didn't touch the water. I like saw it from far away, but I didn't like, go near it like to where I could slip or touch it or anything like that. But so here's what happened. That this is where shit kind of hit the fan a little bit. So the two guys that I was with, the brothers, apparently they had like eaten some gas station sushi or something, which sounds cliche as fuck, but like also what the fuck were they doing? Like why
So
the fuck,
sketchy,
like
bro.
dude, so sketchy. And so but they were like literally about to shit their pants, and it was hilarious. Like they were like, bro, I got like I gotta like take a quick dump in the woods, and I was like, bro, what are you doing? And they're like, dude, fuck it, I'm sorry, like we like need to go down. And so they ran down the mountain, and I was like, fuck.
Damn.
Like now I'm by myself, no
Oh, so
food,
wait,
no
so they
water.
left you. They're
Bro, they
like,
left
oh,
me. They ran down the mountain.
wow.
And I get it, like, you know, they really needed to like take a shit, but like, damn, bro, like you had all the supplies too. so so I was just by myself um on the side. And my friends later, when they found out about this, like my friends, the two guys that were ahead were like, what the fuck, why'd they leave you? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um
yeah, that's like even when you're hiking in like a normal state, you know,
yeah, even
like but
sober, bro.
like buddy system, dude.
Yeah,
Damn.
so it was interesting. So they leave, right? And I was like, damn, okay, now I'm by myself, like whatever. I'm like, I'll be fine, right? It's just only 4 miles down. Like, so so I start hiking down, bro. And this is where I started having a lot of realizations because it was such a steep hike. And I was wearing, like I said, I was wearing training shoes, so they were flat, like, and really bad for going downhill, especially. Like I thought they were
Okay.
bad for uphill, but they were especially bad for downhill. So I couldn't go like run after them or anything like that when they ran down. I would have like eaten shit easily.
Yeah.
And so found myself getting like really thirsty. I'm like, fuck, like like I got some water, and so I ended up like drinking water from the stream, man. It was like all mossy and shit, but they had like like little streams like along the path of just like natural water. I'm like, fuck it, like we're in the mountains or whatever. I don't even know what the terrain is, but I was just drinking the water, and I was like, damn, I'm really grateful for this. Hope I don't like catch anything. And
Yeah. Wait, so there's this stream like by the thing. Is it like actually rushing water where you like put your hands in, or you just kind of like put your lips to it and just like suck the water up?
dude, I don't even remember, honestly. Probably I think I did both at one point or another, because the stream was really soft, and that's why I'm saying it was kind of mossy. It wasn't like fast running water or anything.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Whatever. I was so desperate, man. I was just like, I was like, I need to survive. And I don't remember how. I think whenever they're like, one of the guys was like running down the mountain, he like dropped like a Nature Valley bar or something, or maybe someone. I honestly don't remember. This was a while ago, but or maybe like I encountered some random person whenever I was hiking down, and they gave me a Nature Valley bar. But one way or another, I end up with this Nature Valley bar.
Okay.
And I'm like, holy shit, like sustenance, like, and I ate it, and I swear to God, dude, I have never looked at Nature Valley bars the same again. Like they have so much energy in them, and like it makes total sense to me now why they're like so calorie dense and everything, because they are literally perfect for when you're hiking.
Damn. So that's just like, was it one of those Nature Valley ones that's like literally as hard as like a fucking
Yeah,
rock?
it was like the solid ones, the granola type shit. Like,
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. My mom used to pack those for me in my lunchbox when I was a kid, and I would never eat them because I fucking hated them. And right, they start off as like those two kind of like bricks, basically,
Yeah,
in the
literally.
packaging. But over time, they just turn into like straight up dust. Because she would see I didn't eat it, and she'd just like keep it in my lunchbox and basically like repack it. And weirdly, since then I've just never desired to eat those, but they are very dense. I can see the situation.
dude, I
you're in,
appreciate
that you're
those
like,
so much more now.
dude,
And I was there was a point when so before the brothers left, and they were trying to shit in the woods, like they were trying to like shit in the trees, and they were like, oh man, like what am I gonna use to wipe my ass? And so they had in their bag, they had like a half-eaten bagel in like in a paper bag, and
oh,
they like
man.
threw it on the ground, and I was like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? like that's a whole fucking half bagel. And I picked it up off the ground and ate it. And I remember like being so like, I just, because my stuff was all with my other friends, right? So like I didn't have
Right.
anything of my own like to eat, and so I was like, damn, like I fucking needed this. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like I was in survival mode, and this is where shit really kind of hit the fan. Because I was like drinking from the stream, eating like whatever I could get my hands on, and being so grateful for it. And I remember I had a bit of a belly at the time, and I remember being so conflicted. I'm like, damn, like I have to carry this belly around everywhere. But at the same time, I guess this would sustain me. Like if I like really needed it too. Like, I don't even know how that works, but you know the thoughts you have when you're tripping, right?
Yeah,
And
some random shit.
when things got kind of scary was whenever the sun went down. So I'm on the side of this mountain
Oh,
and the
shit.
sun went down. It's completely pitch dark, dude. And so you know how it is when you're on acid and it's dark and you're in nature. You just kind of start seeing things. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'll be fine. And I stayed calm the entire time, thankfully. Thankfully, I
Okay.
had enough experience tripping. But I definitely was like seeing things that were not there, like in my surroundings. And then whenever I would like randomly come across someone, to just like, I don't know, I just kind of like avoided them and just like kept walking past. But I was always, the entire time I kept telling myself like, oh, like, hey, worst case scenario, I know my friends would come back up and get me. Like they'd look for me at least. And I just kept telling myself that, even though I found out later, I don't think they would have. Not out of like, not like in a bad way, just like, I just don't think it really crossed their mind. I guess I think they were just being patient. But yeah, man, it was intense just getting down. And I finally made it all the way to the bottom. And I like heard my friends' voices somewhere, and I like went to them. They're like, "Oh my god, like I've never been so happy to see you in my life." Like they're just like worried about me. But there were a few like big takeaways that I took from that, and I think one of the biggest ones was that in order to have a good trip, you really need like two things, and those two things are like trust and safety. Like you have to be able to trust your surroundings. Like I couldn't even trust the water I was drinking, which wasn't very conducive towards like a good trip mentally. Luckily, I was able to just like keep my shit together just fine. But the safety is another big one. Like if you feel like you're in danger, like obviously that's pretty bad. Like that's not gonna like it's pretty bad for your psyche, right? Whenever you're on psychedelics. But I don't know. I learned a lot from it, and it was worth it. And I mean, the reality is, I was never like in huge danger. Really, I never like went and touched the waterfall or anything. Like,
Right.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it also turned out to be what sounds like a pretty positive experience for you, because I could definitely see this being scarring, like in someone else's shoes. You know, like, oh, your friends abandoned you, and you're like walking through like the darkness on like this strange hike.
Yeah, man, it was intense for sure. But definitely one of the coolest trips I did. And you get when you're by yourself like that with no connection to the outside world, then you really do have a lot of time to just kind of truly reflect and think about things, especially when you're in nature like that and on psychedelics. I mean, you know, those negative thoughts sometimes will creep into your head. Like I was like, damn,
Yeah,
like
of course.
if I like fell off this cliff and fucked myself up, then they couldn't even ID me because I don't even have my ID on me or a phone or anything. like they'd have to like fucking fingerprint me or some shit. Like just know who the fuck died. Like
Yeah, yeah. I do love the idea, and I've loved my experiences of like tripping on like a hike or some kind of like naturey adventure to an extent. I think another good takeaway from this is like everyone have like be prepared, basically. Have your own little pack, at the very least water, if not a couple snacks and like a small backpack. I think that
maybe a cell phone
would have also saved you. Yeah, that would have saved you a good bit of trouble. But honestly, I totally feel you on the cell phone thing. Even now, I mean, I've been tripping for like 5 years, and I still like don't really enjoy looking at my phone when I'm tripping. And honestly, it's funny because sometimes I will look at it to check if I am still tripping and to what extent, because I know like the more I'm tripping, the more the screen kind of looks like a liquid inside of it.
So that's how I describe it too.
Yeah. And even when I'm coming down, like it's just like lesser degrees of that. So that's interesting. But it like looking at that just always kind of like blew my mind a little bit too much if I'm tripping hard. And then also, yeah, you know, if you get a text or something, tripping hard, you're like, oh, let me see what this is. And then you get sucked down these rabbit holes. And even if it's like positive things on your phone, it's still just not really how I think I would want to spend my time tripping, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I don't like looking at like my phone at all when I'm tripping. I mean, that's why I didn't even want to bring it right on that trip.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally get that. But
yeah, I remember the first time I ever tripped, one of the people I was with was like, dude, you know, like if you just go to the camera app on your phone and look through it, it's just a window to how things look when you're sober. That was the funniest shit, man. Like I'll still do that while tripping, just like look through my camera.
Wait, is it like different? Like what do you see on?
Dude, I don't know. I think it just like everything's like so gorgeous and trippy and stuff when you're like just looking at the world, and then like you look through a phone screen camera and it's kind of like not as cool. You know what I mean? Like, so I think he's like that's why he was like, yeah, that's what it's like when you're sober. It's like not as cool. Like,
damn, that's really funny, dude. And were there any specific visuals from that Yosemite trip that like really stuck with you or that stood out to you?
Dude, definitely. Well, so I mean, obviously, like, well, maybe it's not obvious, but whenever like I was looking at the rocks and they were glistening like crazy, I was also seeing some really cool patterns in the ground, and in the trees and stuff like that, like all of the patterns of nature. But the specific image that I remember the best was like it was either right before or right after I threw up. Probably not right before because everything was spinning, but around the time that I threw up, the acid was just hitting me really hard, and the view like off the side of the mountain was just so gorgeous, and it just like the colors were like these purples and like greens, and it reminded me a lot of one of the Mac OS wallpapers, the Yosemite one.
Yeah, they literally have, I think, an OS called Yosemite.
Yeah, and because we were, I was looking at Half Dome because we weren't hiking Half Dome, but
right, like
we could see it from our like the part of the mountain or whatever that we were on.
Yeah,
and I made that my background at work. Like I was just like as a reminder of that like pretty dope trip. Like,
dude, yeah. No, the reason I ask is because truly, I think one of the coolest things about psychedelics, and there's a lot of cool things, is you just, especially when you're outside, see some like just really beautiful shit. Like literally some of the memories of things of like literally like the top 3 like most beautiful things I have ever seen in my life were all on acid in particular, because it's just like super visual and it's fucking cool. It's I think of it as like art almost. It's like very ephemeral art that's all in your head, but like, man, some of those memories stick with me so vividly. And if I had any creative capabilities whatsoever, like I'm shit at like anything creative, I would probably draw those images like again and again. Like to that extent of beauty.
Have you ever sneezed on shrooms or acid?
I think at this point I probably have, especially because I just sneeze a lot as a human. But I don't like recall a specific instance when I did.
Dude, I don't know. I think this might have just been like a unique situation. I don't think this happens like every time you sneeze while tripping, but there was one time when I was I was hiking in Colorado in the winter on shrooms, and I sneezed and everything turned green for like a fat minute. Like, it was just like color filter on. Like, it was like so cool, dude.
Like everything's just like different shades of green.
Yeah, green and purple. I don't know. Like purple is like when I'm tripping, purples come up a lot. I don't know, but yeah, man, dude. it was crazy. I was like, what the fuck? Like,
that's wild. I've never heard of anything like that, but now I think you've planted that seed in my head, and I hope that next time I trip and I have to sneeze, which I almost inevitably will have to because I just have allergies to shit, I will maybe shit will change colors. Dude, that's oh my god.
Yeah, it's only happened to me once, but that shit was fucking dope. Like,
yeah, that sounds badass. Like,
yeah, I also feel like
memory.
When you're talking about like the beauty and the visuals of psychedelics, like I definitely like noticed a lot of things in seemingly mundane environments that I wouldn't have noticed before. And now whenever I'm sober, I notice those same things. So it's like I'll notice the color of the flowers that are more vibrant. Like they like stand out to me even when I'm sober now because I noticed them when I was tripping, right? Even if it's not the same place, just in general.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Like that reminded me of another hike that I went on when I was tripping pretty hard on acid probably like 2 years ago. And it was this hike that like goes through this forest. It's really chill. It's not super long or strenuous. But at some point, the trail kind of goes in this like pretty small like C shape. And in the middle of this C was this like gorgeous flower that just came out of the ground. It was literally like 4 or 5 feet tall. It was really tall. And there was these like beautiful flowers on the end of it. And this isn't just kind of like a field of grass and kind of a clearing in the woods. And dude, I remember like we were walking around that with the group and I just stopped and like I was staring at it and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like nature is like a museum, bro. Like this flower is just on display for us, like in the middle of this like curve in this trail. It literally looked like it was like curated for us.
Dude, no one stops and smells the flowers anymore, man.
Dude, that's super true. And it's actually funny because now I've gone on that hike a couple of times sober as well, just because it's not too far from where I live. And that plant is still there. And now every time I see it, I just like pay it a little bit of a mental tribute. I'm like, you brought me so much joy. And like, I appreciate that this really cool, unique plant is just here, like on this part of the trail. Like, thank you.
Dude, yeah, I definitely think that just doing psychedelics in general will help you appreciate nature, like when you're tripping and when you're sober. At least I've gotten a much better appreciation of nature and like sunsets even and stuff like that.
Oh, I totally agree. And honestly, the first like batch of trips that I had when I first got into it were almost all outdoors. And those are honestly some of my fondest memories of tripping. And even now, like I'd say probably more indoor than outdoor, but I definitely want to get back to doing more outdoor and cool places. And I think part of that is also I've just been doing shrooms a lot more than LSD. And for me, shrooms is like way less visual. But for anything LSD, I'm like, I would probably want to be outside where I can see like a gorgeous sunset or even just trees. Like you were mentioning the patterns in the trees, dude, it's the coolest thing. Just kind of like the fractals of like the leaves and stuff. Oh, dude, it's incredible.
It really is, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been talking about trees and rocks for the last like 5 minutes. Believe it or not. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. And that's the pod. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really fucking appreciate y'all. If you want to show us some love, it would actually mean the world to us. If you're listening on YouTube, drop the video a like and the channel a subscription. And if you're listening on a podcast, just leave us a quick rating. These few seconds of your time go a really long way in helping us out. If you want to hit us up with questions, episode ideas, or anything else, you can reach us on Twitter at MDHpod or email us at mdhpod@gmail.com. Finally, we're just getting started with the pod, and our promise to you is to make every episode at least 1% better than the last. We'll catch you next week.